All right, welcome back to Blue Line 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today, and the jug is in Ann Arbor. We will take it. A win is a win. We will not apologize for winning,
Nope.
right? We said
That's
that
that's the
last
first
week.
thing I said in the group chat. I will not
You did.
apologize for a win.
You did. We will not apologize for a win. But I think that there's a lot to talk about, a lot to clean up for sure here. Michigan goes in and beats Minnesota yesterday in the rain, 27-24. So I don't know. I mean, one, I think that's just not a good Minnesota team, if I'm being really honest, and Michigan should have won by a lot more. I also think outside of three drives, all ending up in touchdowns towards the end for Minnesota, Michigan played pretty dang well for 3.5 quarters, right? So I don't know, man. I feel like unfortunately that game leaves a really bad taste in your mouth because of how it ended. But I see it. I see kind of two sides to it. One, you can look at the first 3 quarters and say, all right, there's a lot of good to take away from that. And then you can also look at the fourth quarter and say, holy shit, we have a lot to clean up, and this team, isn't there yet, right? So I don't know, which side are you leaning more towards?
I'm leaning towards I need to see a complete game, right? I mean, this is how many weeks in a row? This is 3 weeks in a row where Michigan first half pretty dominant, right? Arkansas State, they're up 21-3, USC up 14-0. This game, they're up 21-3, and it's like you get to the second half and the wheels kind of come off, right? And you've been able to win all three games. Two of those three are the much more talented team. The USC game was a gritty win, and we talked about, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird to see, I mean, Michigan's up 24-3 going into the fourth quarter. Minnesota hasn't really been able to do anything all
I
game
was
outside
gonna
that
say
last drive in the first half.
at that time, I mean, I don't know exactly how many yards they had at that point, but we were just kind of going through it. Like their drives in the first half are punt, miss field goal, punt, fumble, punt, interception, field goal, punt. And it's like, okay, so so like they haven't been able to do anything. But I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, I mean, so that last punt was after Michigan's field goal in the third quarter. That was a 3-and-out for Minnesota, and then the next drive for Michigan is when Alex Orji throws the pick. Now, saw Jay Do on Twitter this morning. Orji has to kind of reset his feet because pressure comes through. Shocker. Otherwise, both Loveland and Donovan Edwards were wide open, right? So if he's able to maybe, not have to readjust, that might have been a touchdown to Colson Loveland, but he has to move up in the pocket, and then the safety has time to get back over. Makes a great play. And I don't hate the idea, right? It's Colson Loveland. Let him go try to make a play. I think maybe needs to put that more
Towards
towards
the
Loveland.
hashes.
Yeah, he put it right kind of in the middle of the field, gave the safety more room to get over there. And Donovan was wide open as well. So,
But he did say, Orgy did say in the post-game press conference that Colston was his first read, which in that moment, Colston is wide open, right? But to your point, it's an extra one step up, right? Which is an extra second, and then the safety's able to make his way. But go on.
Yeah, so I mean, again, the defense was very dominant in the first half. I mean, they gave up the 77-yard drive at the end to let Minnesota get on the board with a field goal. But so if you take that drive, and then they have in the fourth quarter a 14-play, 76-yard drive to score. Michigan goes 3-and-out, and then they get the short field with a great punt return by Corey Perchick from Minnesota, who I'm a big fan of his. He was a great kid coming out of high school, just a stud athlete, Minnesota kid, so wasn't going to leave. So then they score in 3 plays. That's when Michigan, hey, you get a 14-play, 58-yard drive, which potentially should have maybe ended in a touchdown if CJ Charleston doesn't get called for a hold. As you probably go either way there. I thought it was a little bit weak.
I also think for CJ, like, I don't know if that's just a learning point, but man, just it's if you don't do that, it's a 25-yard run, and you guys have 1st and 10 or 1st and goal on like the 8-yard line or something.
Absolutely.
Right? So
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what happened, man. I mean, like yesterday, as we all know, was kind of kind of a sleepy day, rainy. Student section cleared out at half, and it was, kind of a easy opportunity for Michigan to kind of sleepwalk, and they did in the second half. And so, they have 3 long drives that, probably make this game a lot much closer than it should have been. Also, it's 24-3. It's a 4th and 11. I think it's a 4th and long. Minnesota goes for it. Michigan gets a stop. There's a hands to the face. And I don't want to be a USC fan, but hey, when you win, you can kind of complain about officiating a little bit more because your team did win the game. But there's a hands to the face, and it's Mason Graham's on his shoulder pads.
Yeah.
And so that completely changes it because you're talking literally 3 minutes of game time later. It's a touchdown game. But I will say credit to Michigan for going and getting a field goal, right, to basically put that game out of reach. And then I guess we got to talk about the onside kick. I don't know what happened there.
I mean, okay, so I thought the broadcast actually did a pretty poor job of pointing out what it actually was, which I believe it was actually illegal touching, or it should have been. I don't know why.
It wasn't offsides, but
I don't know why they called offsides though, because he was close in real time. He's really, really close to being offsides. And the thing too that's going to make them call that in real time is he started before everybody else. He started running before everybody else on the kicking team. So that, you have to realize all these refs are watching things in real time, and they don't get the opportunity to break it down in super slow-mo on the replay, right? But I do believe it hit off of the Minnesota guy at like 9.5 yards off his leg too. So, that could have been called as well. I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, if you want to say justice for Minnesota, I don't know. You can, there's an argument there, I guess.
But if you want to do that, then again, you can go back to the hands of the face. That would have been Michigan ball, 24-3. Backups probably get in the game, right? Yeah. So football, it's a game of momentum, game of swings, right? And, Minnesota gets blessed, and maybe you could say Michigan gets blessed, but it is what it is. So, and then Michigan, is able to run the clock out there. Gets a little hairy with Alex Orji's. I don't know what happened there. The snap was bad or it was wet. I don't know.
It was weird because like Bredesen crossed his face obviously twice, but he didn't look like he was ready. He was like looking kind of to the side. It felt like, and the snap came like right here. I don't know. I agree with your take on just like I feel that. And this has become a recurring theme in the second halves is Michigan gets up and Michigan feels like they want to coast to a win. Like they aren't actually going to put somebody away. And that to me is the difference between the last year and this year so far. Obviously you can talk about a lot of talent is different as well, but just from a culture and mentality standpoint, I feel like this is in my opinion, both the coaches and the players. I think that in that USC game, Michigan got really, really conservative with play calling in that fourth quarter. And in this game, they also did. There were multiple drives where I understand you want to run the clock out. I get that, but I think that Michigan needs to find their killer mentality. And when you have somebody down 24-3 in your home stadium and you're obviously better than them, you have to step on their throat. You have to make sure nothing happens. And that's what I think that they need to find right now. And they don't seem to have that where late in the fourth quarter or in the second half when it's all right, you watch what Ohio State did to Michigan State yesterday. Right? Where it's like, all right, Michigan State actually was showing signs of life in the first half. They played pretty well. They get a pick and all that stuff. But then at the end of the day, what Ohio State did was they said, all right, we're a lot better than you in the second half. A, they make adjustments, and B, they step on your throat. That's what Michigan needs to figure out right now.
Yeah, I think they need to be better. They got to be better coming out of halftime. I mean, that's the thing that over the last 3 years that Michigan was pretty damn good at, was being able to come out. It's important the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, right? That's that opportunity to be able to swing a game in your direction. And I just, to your point, I haven't seen it from this team quite yet. They've gone in with some decent leads in their wins in the first half, and they come out and it's just like, what's going on? What happened? Right? Like where is to your point, where is that mentality of like, no, we're gonna go win this game. We're not gonna, let the other team lose. We're gonna take this game and continue to support on. That's the thing that Michigan did last year, right? Like I think Michigan was up 24-10 at half against Minnesota last year in Minneapolis, and they won 52-10. This year they're up 21-3. So they've got an even bigger lead. And then they just let Minnesota right back into the game, and it gets very scary. And you start to get your stomach churning a little bit, like, oh God, here we go. Like, is this going to happen? And thankfully they find a way to not let it happen, but you should never be in that position in the first place. So I don't know, man. I need to really go and watch and dissect. I was at the game, and then I watched like the longer highlights from ESPN, or not ESPN, but Fox Sports this morning, just to get an idea. I need to go really watch and dissect, but I don't know. It's really confusing from the first half to the second half and the struggles, right? The Arkansas State game, we could talk about, hey, they didn't score until 6 minutes left in the game, and they had their backups in, Michigan did, and so Arkansas State was able to make some plays, and it's like, all right, whatever. But then the USC game, you're dominating. I mean, USC has like 12 yards of offense. And again, it's just like the Minnesota game. Their first long drive is right before half to go get some points. And then USC had another drive that stalled out at midfield with no time left, but they were moving the ball. And it's like, so what's happening heading into halftime in the second quarter late to where you're dominating? Right? Like, you watch the Michigan-Minnesota game, they can't do a thing. I mean, they drive down and miss a field goal. That was the only success that they had until that final drive in the second half where they do connect on the field goal. So it's like, what is changing from where you're getting 3 and outs and you're dominating and the stars are being stars and Mason Graham is making plays? What changes as we get closer to halftime and then coming out in the third quarter? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I still do believe that is like a killer mentality, where it's like, all right, we need to absolutely come out here and make sure we finish. That was, I feel like under Jim Harbaugh and Ben Herbert, that was their biggest emphasis as a team and as a program is we are going to be tougher, more physical, and stronger, faster in the fourth quarter than you are. You're going to you as a visiting team, you are going to be worn down in the fourth quarter. We are still operating at the highest level. Right now, we definitely don't have that in the fourth quarter, but to your point, we don't have that at the end of the second half or the first half. Right? And so I think it starts there, but then I want to talk about second half adjustments. This is where a season ago Michigan dominated in the second half. And to me, that's what really, really good teams do. For a long time, pre-2021, and even to be honest, in this last 3 years, outside of playing against Michigan, this is what Ohio State has done. They let teams kind of hang around for the first half, and then the third quarter, they just go out and dominate, right? Under Jesse Minter, well, how many points were scored in the third quarter? It was a ridiculous stat all year, right? It was a long time before anybody scored on us in the third quarter. Right now, we're letting teams get back into it in the third and fourth quarter. And so I think it's 2 things. One, teams are making adjustments to Michigan's game plan, right? Where it's, they're realizing, okay, we're going to stack the box, or we're going to, bring our safeties up, or whatever it is. And then Michigan, so teams have adjusted for Michigan, and Michigan has not adjusted to the other team. I've seen it both ways. I don't think that Michigan has, figured things out and made any adjustments. They're like, all right, this is working. We're just going to keep going with it. And I don't know what your feelings are about this, because I struggle to see, from Wink and from Kirk, like unbelievable things that are happening from the first half to the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with Wink, I think it's just going to be a theme all season where he's just going to call things because they're cool. And it's like, we don't, again, I was at the stadium, and it was it was rainy, and it was like, it's you. I mean, again, Michigan's a 24-3, so I'm like, all right, I'm just kind of ready to get out of here. Wait till it gets a little bit closer to the fourth quarter. I'll head on out, and then it becomes a ball game. So I got to go through and watch it again. But I feel like you're gonna see cover zero, and you're bringing a lot of pressure, and it's like, again, do you really need to?
Right.
When, I mean, they were getting pressure organically in the first half.
Even without Josiah Stewart, Josiah Stewart's out on this.
TJ Guy played a great game.
A
He
great
had a sack after getting his helmet ripped off, by the way.
also should have been a penalty. Like, I don't know what else, if there isn't a more obvious thing to call when his helmet gets ripped off.
And then he has to wait. He has to sit out a play, and it's like, why did his helmet fall off? It wasn't because it was loose. I can tell you that.
So I mean, yeah, I think that I want to ask you a question on the offensive side of the ball. I have no idea how much impact Sharon has right now on play calling. Do you think that maybe he has to step in a little bit more and not completely hand the reins to Kirk Campbell?
I don't know. I mean, there was a comment made within the last couple of weeks, and it might have been after the Texas or Arkansas State game. I can't remember, but Sharon made a comment where he is going to be more involved in the play calling on game days. Yeah, I mean, at this point, you would think, right? Like, and yeah, you're limited by your quarterback, but there were some moments that I really liked what I saw from Alex Orji. He hit some guys, some tight ends, mainly Colston and Marlin on some crossing routes. And then there was a throw to Colston where he had to step up, and he fires it in there for a first down. And you're like, okay, like, this is not, this isn't like Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma,
right,
but like, hey, this is something that we can work with. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you got to make it easier on your quarterback again. And I don't know. I mean, we've seen Michigan do this where they're not very creative and they're able to win games. Now, last year it looked a lot better because you're just dominant, and it wasn't the greatest game plan in the history of college football when you're beating these teams like Nebraska and Minnesota by 35, 38, 42 points last year, right?
Better than them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, maybe this is what that looks like, where they're like, we can just out talent, we can save things for later, which, hey, I'm on board with, right?
I'm on board with, and I also pray to God that that's the case. Let me say that. But I do think, everyone wants to focus on the quarterback, and I understand that that's football, right? The quarterback is going to be the biggest key piece to your offense. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know that our QB play is the issue. Now, I don't think that our QBs are, great, right? Obviously, there's a talent gap between top 10 pick JJ McCarthy and what we have on the field currently. Right. That's obvious. But I also think, I think the receiver play to start with is not great. We don't have people that can get open on a regular basis right now outside of Colston Loveland. And when you just have it one guy that they can key in on, it makes it pretty easy for the defense. So I'll stop there and let's talk about that. And then I want to talk about the O-line as well.
Yeah, I mean, 3 catches for 36 yards for the wide receivers yesterday. Or 35 yards, excuse me. I don't know, man. The Samaj play, I don't recall. We had a good time at the tailgate,
I had a great time at the tailgate. So
that was probably the best part of the day.
Shout out. Even it was, some people are like, oh, I hate a rain tailgate. I low-key love it because it just adds to the chaos. Everyone's just like in a panic, and it's just everyone just
wear waterproof stuff.
We embrace it. We embrace it too. We're gritty. We're playing Flip Cup in the rain, which Ohio State fans could never. They're probably sitting in their car with the heat on, warming up. But we're out there, and we're men of the people.
I was drinking ciders and seltzers. So if
shout out
fans would like to
shout out to Sun Cruiser and Truly and Hale IPA, because they all made an impact on how amazing of a day you had.
I'll tell you what, Sun Cruiser, you do that in the Blongzilla, that's a smooth.
The hard vodka tea is zero bubbles.
No, you're good. You're not getting any air in the stomach at that one. So
yeah.
I lost a couple shotguns, but I don't know if the The shotgun hole was regulation size.
Did you
I
lose
was
a
at a
step?
I was at a disadvantage. I did win on the Bongzillas. So that was on the Blue by 90 story. I was on it there. I was
were.
in and out.
You were.
But so I say all that, we had a great time at the tailgate. So there are like intricate details that if I was watching at home completely sober, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what's going on here. And so, I don't even know, did Swash play? Like, I would love to see the snap counts. We have not gotten those yet from PFF, but
it doesn't feel. I just, outside of Colson Loveland, it truly does not feel like there is anybody out there that is like open on any type of regular basis.
I have a name.
You have
I've
a
been
name?
saying this for 2 months. Donovan Edwards, because Khalil Mullings was on the field at the same time, and
We saw it.
Out.
We saw it.
He runs a wheel route, and it's like, guys, you could do that.
They did it, and it worked, and he's wide open. And I know Colston is open too, which ends up in an interception. But it's like you can look at that and say, "Oh, it's an interception. It's a bad play." You can also look at that like, "Holy shit, we had two guys running down the field a long ways that were open." Which, how many times can we say that legitimately?
Might have been the first time this year,
literally. And so I think you have to go back to that. I felt like I did like a couple ways that they had Donovan, come back in motion. There was the one running play where Donovan comes back, kind of like circles behind Orgy, then takes it to the left side. I liked that play. So there was some creativity. I feel like there was creativity in the first half with using Mullings, using Donovan, using Orgy, and you have to be able to use all three of those tools to your, in your toolkit. Those are three guys that all bring people, bring defenders to them.
Do you think that there's a certain level of within the coaching staff of like, okay, we're up 21-3, defense is balling, we're just going to let them do their thing, and we're just going to be very vanilla the rest of the way? Like, I mean, do you think that might be what it is? And then
yes, but I hate that. I hate that. I know, shit.
Right? Get up 38-3, and then it's like, all right, cool.
Exactly.
Right? You get a couple more touchdowns. All right, cool. We can lay off the break. We can lay off a little
bit. And also like, if this was the 2023 team, then sure, because your team is that good, and you're doing that. We don't know. They don't even know what they have as a coaching staff. I don't think they truly know what they have in their offense. So, I get that if you want to save some stuff, but you need to get your guys reps and playing well together and all that. So if you want to say like, sure, we got up and we went, vanilla, like sure, but I hate that, because I need, like, if we win this game 31-3 or even 31-10, you feel a lot better, and they have a ton of confidence going into Washington, right? But right now, nobody has confidence because you let up and you had to squeak by the hair on your chinny chin a home game against a bad Minnesota team. So that's where
Khalil Mullings might have confidence.
Khalil Mullings is I went to church this morning and got it down on my knees and prayed and thanked the Lord for Khalil Mullings. I thanked him for Khalil Mullings. I struggle, like, I just struggle with having that attitude of like, I feel like last year, and under Jim Harbaugh, like it was like a Blake Corum, a JJ McCarthy, like these guys, and you could go down the list of all these guys, Trevor Keegan, Zach Sinter, who are just like, listen, we're better than you. We know it, and we're going to go out and show it. And we're not going to stop until you are literally laying on the ground. Right. And like, you have nothing left there. It's a lifeless team on the other side of the ball because you've taken their soul. You don't have that right now. It is, all right, let's get up a little bit. And then why don't we just chill out? Like, that's what I'm seeing. And I hate every bit of it.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about positive? How about Jair Hill? Thought he had a great game.
I thought he had a great game. He
was
really
the highest rated guy from PFF on defense.
Which is hard to do with how Mason Graham played. My God.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Mason Graham was a 67 rating. I don't understand PFF sometimes. I thought he was all over the place, but hey. I
Well,
don't want to do
we
that
agree.
job, so I'm not going to argue about it.
We agree with it when it makes sense to
Absolutely.
us, and then it's a
That's basically what
stupid
Blue by the Numbers is just me
it's
bitching unless it fits my narrative.
it's a stupid analytic if it doesn't work for us. But
Yeah.
okay, hold on. Before we get to the defensive side of the ball, though, I do want to go back to talking about like QB play versus O line. I think our low O line is getting better. I do think that this O line is a lot different right now after 5 weeks than it was after 1 week, 2 weeks. So they're getting better. But I still think I am not putting the blame. We talked about the receivers. Now I want to talk about the O line. Like Alex Orji, when he did have time to throw, got to his second read, got to his third read, and played pretty well. But as you're saying, even the Colston Loveland, even the pick that was intended for Colston Loveland, that's because he had to step up in the pocket. He shifted to his right, had to wait an extra second because he has to step up because there's pressure, and then he throws it a little bit to his part of the inside. And so, I just don't think, again, are our QBs great? I'm not going to say that, but I don't think that it's fair to put it all on the quarterbacks, whether it's Davis Warren, whether it's Alex Orji, or maybe it's Jack Tuttle in the future. I have no idea, right? But I think that there's what I want to say is there is a lot more that needs to be cleaned up on the offensive side of the ball in order for you to assess the QB situation with, taking all that into effect.
No, I'm with you. Got to find a little bit more consistency in the pass pro. I thought the first drive was really encouraging from the offense. I was like, okay, maybe Michigan go out here and take care of business. But hey, look, they got short yardage and they converted when they had that opportunity, right? So that's a low bar, but it's like, okay, like if Michigan is going to create short fields for their offense through turnovers and special teams with blocked punts, or maybe later in the season some nice returns from Morris and Samaj, like the offense can pay it off. That's going to be huge, right? So I don't know. I just continue to struggle with the thought that this is the best Michigan has to offer, considering how many guys have been in the program for 2, 3, 4 years, and it's like, this is it, right? Like, and we've been spoiled, right?
Totally have been spoiled.
So I don't know, man. I just, you want to see some improvement. But again, I think they're much better than they were week 1, right? And so that's football, man. You're going to get better throughout the year, and you're going to get better by playing football. And who knows where they'll be, against Washington, and then you have a bye week, so you can get some guys healthy. Get back to the basics. Maybe work on some different installations of things that you want to run the rest of the year. Before you've got to play Illinois, which, that's looking like a bigger game than it was at the start of the season. So, you get through, if you could beat Washington, which, I think Michigan, again, it should be a similar situation where it's like they can out-talent Washington. Maybe you can get back to the drawing board a little bit in the bye week, get some guys healthy, and maybe, simplify things for the O linemen in the run game. And I don't know.
I agree with you, except for the fact that we are nearly halfway through the season. If
I
you're saying that,
I am
know,
coping hard, brother.
I know. You're trying to find an answer to like, hey, maybe this will work out. Maybe we will figure it all out. But the reality is like, if you're saying this after week 2 or 3, then I'm fine with that. After week 5 and going into the bye week, midway through the season, that's where I'm struggling with it. But to kind of parlay the offensive conversation into the defense, Joel Klatt, I thought, said it really well on the broadcast after I watched it back too, where he said this defense, when healthy and rested, right, when they are energized and are on the field for a long time, they're unbelievable. Let's I know that they give up 3 touchdowns at the end of this game, but I truly believe that is a direct that reasoning is directly from the offense as well. They were on the field a lot. I look at even the first half, Tanner, like you go out, you said that first drive, touchdown, 10 plays for 79 yards, and you go for 5 minutes. That is exactly what we want. That's perfect, right? But then the next one is 3 plays for 9 yards, 2 minutes. Then the next one, 4 plays for 10 yards, a minute and a half. Then the next one is, you get short yardage and it's 3 plays for 16 yards for a minute and a half. The next one, 3 plays, 1 yard, a minute and a half. The next one play, 11 yards, a minute and a half. The next one, 3 plays, -4 yards for a minute and 47 seconds. You know, like this defense, by the time that fourth quarter comes around, they've been on the field for 85% of the game, right? So, like, and I know part of that is because they're making plays and creating short yardage for Michigan, but Michigan has to be able to move the ball and not just have their defense. Otherwise, this is definitely going to be a recurring instance throughout the year where they're coming down to stretch in the fourth quarter and this defense is just gassed because they've been playing for way too much.
Yeah, I can see that, but also like if you look at Minnesota's drives, like it's not like the defense is on the field that long until that field goal at the end of the first half, field goal drive where they go 11 plays, 77 yards, minute 54. But otherwise, the longest drive that Minnesota had was their first drive, which was a 6-play, 9-yard drive that ended in a punt. Excuse me, they had the 8-play drive that they ended with a missed field goal. But otherwise, they're 4 and out, 2 and out with a fumble, 3 and out, 3 and out, 1 and out with a pick. So it's like,
well, first of all, I hate you for not agreeing with my take, but
but it's like, so it's like, so my question would be like, yeah, like, okay, look, Michigan's not, going out. I mean, they have the, they have a 13-play drive for 40 yards to get the field goal to go 24-3. And then they force a 3 and out. So they're on the field for a minute 30. And then Michigan goes 4 plays, 17 yards. That's where the orgy pick comes in. And then Minnesota goes 14 plays, 76 yards. So it's like, I don't know how much of that you can really pin on, Michigan's offense of not giving their guys enough rest. Then they go 3 and out, and then they get a 3-play, 17-yard touchdown drive because of the short field. So
can I ask you a question then? Is it can it be possible that part of that is mental too? I think that there's like obviously there's a huge mental part of the game. There's no doubt about that, right? I think that there's something to that with the defense where maybe their legs are fresh, but when you have to go back out there again right after a pick or right after a 3 and out after you just made your stop, I think that can wear on you a little bit where it's like, all right, like, oh my God, we just did this. Like, can this offense make it, capitalize on what we just did? Right. I think there's a mental side to that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's 24-3. Like, I still don't know why they struggle so much in the fourth quarter is because otherwise the defense was so dominant.
Right.
And it's like, again, they're getting off the field. So, they're getting their own rest, right? Like, yeah, maybe, and, like Michigan, they have the 14-play, 60-yard drive to go up 10 with the field goal late in the fourth quarter. And then Minnesota still goes 14 plays, 75 yards. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's like you're up 24-3. Like what mentality could be like, oh no, like it just started out of nowhere, right? And again, that hands to the face really, really screwed them and extended that drive when it shouldn't have. Otherwise, we're having a probably a lot better conversation of like, hey, we're chilling, right? So it's like, and that changes the perception of the team and the performance of the defense, the offense, special teams, all that stuff. But I don't know what the answer is of like why they keep giving up like, long drives in the second half. Like it's kind of crazy.
I agree. It's something that needs to be addressed. That's for sure. That's got to be the one thing that Michigan is working on in the next 2 weeks, right? Is saying, all right, how do we finish games? But all in all, I mean, you mentioned Jair Hill. I think that he is, he was thrown into the fire. I don't know if anybody's been thrown into the fire more than being your second start against Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense, because whether it's Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning, that offense is unbelievable. But he's played really, really well, the last 2-3 weeks now, and is coming into his own. And so I think that, at the end of the day, even though, we are a bit sour at the end of that game, Michigan's defense is still, it is the bright spot of this team, right? There's no doubt about it. And if Michigan's going to win,
man,
you just got to play a complete game. I definitely agree with that. I think that, like the way that I've said it is 2 things. One, I feel like Michigan right now, it feels like, especially on the offensive side of the ball, has 9 or 10 guys doing their job well on any given play. But it seems like they're 1 to 2 guys off from breaking a big play or 1 to 2 guys off from it being a completion versus a sack, right? Or something like that. And so I think there's that thing, there's that piece to it. And then there's the play a complete game. Put 4 quarters together. You can put three and a half sometimes. You need to put 4 good quarters together and play a complete game. Now, to me, is that coaching more than on the players?
Probably a little bit of both, right? Um, I I don't know. I mean, I think they just need to see it happen, right? As weird as that sounds, I mean, because we're not that far removed from this defense, and a lot of these guys that played a ton of snaps last year, being one of the best defenses in the country, one of the best defenses in recent memory, and maybe one of the best defenses in Michigan history. And it's like, you got to see it happen with this group, right? Because you got new starters, you got transfers, you got different guys coming in. But you have your 2 best players are out on defense, by the way, and you're dominant through 3 quarters.
Right.
And so it's like, just put together a complete game. Because hey, if Will Johnson's out there, like, probably don't go all the way down the field a couple of those drives, right? And Josiah Stewart's there, maybe you get a sack and push him back, right? So you do that without 2 of your best defensive players, and got to clean that up. And you can't give up 3 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter. Like, that's terrible. But to your point, at that point they were on the field forever because Michigan wasn't really able to do anything until they got that field goal drive. So yeah, I mean, I think this game coming up against Washington's a really great opportunity. And Justin, I want to know your thoughts, man. Sometimes going on the road is a good reset, right?
Totally.
Like, you're 4-1. You know, you beat USC.
We're 4-1 and ranked. I mean, we're probably going to drop a little bit, but we're still probably going to be in the top
number 10
15.
loss, number 6 loss. So the AP voters love to just move people up if they win. So.
I know that right now we're very used to being number 1 in the country, and top. We got really comfortable with being undefeated and being really good.
That was pretty fun, though.
I had a great time. It was a lot more fun when we could just come on here, talk about how we just beat the shit out of every team by 40 points, and there was like nothing bad to talk about. But I definitely think that you've been home for 5 straight games. It's a good change of pace. Let's go to Washington. Let's maybe like regroup, find ourselves, find our identity. Right. That's what I want to do, because as negative as we've been on here the last couple of weeks, right? I mean, we definitely bitched about Arkansas State because it was, we had a lot of issues in that game. Should have won by a lot more. We bitched about the USC game because that one should have been, you're up way big early. You have to figure it out. Probably should have lost that game. And then this one, you should have put it away. It should have been a 38-3 game, right? It should have been something like that. And so we've been pretty negative on here, I would say. I don't want to say negative, but more realistic. But I actually do think Michigan's really close. I think that they have all the pieces right now. And at times, all of those pieces are working, but they have not put all those pieces together at the exact same time. And so will they be able to figure that out? I don't know. Right? But can they figure that out? Absolutely. There's a lot of season left. And I think, to your point, you go to Washington, they haven't looked awesome. So you have a chance on the road where you can go get a great win. You have a chance then for a bye week where you can collect yourselves. You can, get healthy. You can figure some things out. And then you have Illinois, right? And then Michigan State. And so you have a really big test then in the middle of October. And so I just think that they've got some time right now to figure things out, but they are, 1 to 2 pieces away from having everything clicking. And it all clicked last year. Like, it was just clicking from the start. It never didn't click. I think these guys got to figure out what to do when it doesn't click and how to respond. And I don't think they're that far off is that's my big takeaway after 5 weeks.
No, I don't either. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to regroup and, us versus the world mentality on the road that a lot of teams embrace. And, I think it might be good for them to get on the road and go to Washington. Now, I don't think Michigan's done too great going to like West Coast teams, or like old Pac-12 teams, like, going to Utah wasn't fun. There's probably some others sprinkled in there. But, this is a team that lost to Rutgers on Friday night. And I think Michigan, again, I'm going to keep predicting that they'll play a full 4 quarters in our, Thursday podcast we do. Because I was going to be close. I said 34-3. I was sitting there in the fourth quarter like, man, this might come to fruition for us. And it didn't.
If you say it enough, it'll come true at some point, right?
Speak it into
So,
existence, man.
we'll just keep speaking it into existence. I think that I think that Michigan has the opportunity to still be a good to great team. I really do. So all right, well, we'll see what happens. I'm sure I've seen it already on social media yesterday and today that a lot of people are mad online. But I'm going to choose to look at the positives here while still being realistic, right? I'm not saying there are zero issues. First place in the Big Ten. I did like I think it was M. Gobeen. He said something about that. One of our rivals just got absolutely mollywopped by another one of our rivals, and that first rival is like patting themselves on the back for playing like a good quarter and a half of football, even though that other team played 3 quarterbacks, like emptied the bench. But so at least we're not there, we'll see. But
could be worse.
Hey, could be worse, could be better. Michigan's got they've come a long way, and even in 5 weeks, they've still got a ways to go. But the opportunity lies ahead. So we'll see what's to come. Shout out to North Peak Brewing and Hale IPA. Get yourself one of those inside Michigan Stadium. We won't be able to get one again for a while now. But you can go to Plum Market, Bushes, and anywhere around Ann Arbor to grab a 6-pack yourself. Shout out to Truly Hard Seltzer and Sun Cruiser Hard Vodka Tea with no bubbles. Bubbles. They're great. They're great. They're
great to spike as well.
Great to spike as well. You did that a couple times too.
I did do that with Pick Whitney, and it was an electric combination.
Yeah, I love it. All right. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.